I know how to stand up to a man. I'm defenseless against that kind of female insanity.
You fucking leave me alone!
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. Also, thank you to the podcast listeners. There are more and more of you every week, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'm producer Dave, and you can find me on Grindr.
I am HK Perrin. You can find me on Twitter at HK Perrin, and you can find me in the chat where I go by Sylphweed, which is also the name of my game streaming channel, where you can watch me play games. And I do that a whole lot more often now than I used to.
Yeah, you're self-employed, which means gamer. So we got a couple announcements. One, next week, I believe HK will be joining me here in the studio for the first time in fucking I don't know how long for an episode of the Intellectual Dollar Tree, and that's pretty cool. And it's also 4/20.
On that day?
Yes.
Oh, shit. I might be getting high for the first time in forever, too.
So what I was thinking is, yeah, we could get hella blazed and watch the Jordan Peterson Slajov Zizek debate, because that's the only way I could fucking handle that shit. I can't stand either of those people. So I think we could do that, or we could find some insufferable piece of content that we really would not otherwise watch unless we were just passing a bong back and forth the entire time. I think that's what we got to do.
I'm down.
Cool. Then we'll cut the show off early and get fast food or some shit. Also, just there's a couple things going on. One, we have an event on the day after that, April 21st, for anybody here in San Jose. It is at Liquid Lounge. It's at night. You should go there. The Rebels Camp is playing. I'm playing. Chip DeVille is playing. And Three-Headed Dragon is playing. It should be a great thing. And we have a stage at the Sofa Music Fest. More information on that to be dropped soon, but instead of bands like we usually do there, it's a dance stage, so it'll be all DJs, and it's happening, I believe, in a fucking video game lounge, so it's gonna be pretty fucking cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's all the announcements for the network. Now, unfortunately, so if you have calipers available and some benzodiazepine, you'll be ready for the thing that we're about to watch here. This is Caliper Claire from Gillette on the Jordan Peterson podcast, everybody. This is from fucking 2 days ago.
Did he only release it on Odyssey, or are we just choosing to watch it on Odyssey?
We're choosing to watch it on Odyssey because we get those weird Odyssey bucks.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm pleased to have with me as a guest today Claire Lehman, the founding editor of Quillette, and someone I've known for a while now. as much as you can know someone when you're in Canada and they're in Australia. Quillette is a nonpartisan online publication that publishes...
False. It is a race pseudoscience far-right publication. Okay, keep going.
Long-form commentary and analysis, and which specializes...
He was right that it's online, though.
Often appear too timid to touch. Quillette's first anthology was Panics and Persecutions, 20 Quillette Tales of Excommunication in the Digital Age.
it was a cancel culture. God. So
did he almost say the diddly age?
The digital age, but we could pretend he said the diddly age.
Howdy ho, neighbor.
So this is going to be interesting too, because a lot of the IDW got mad at Caliper Claire because she refused to become an anti-vaxxer. And so she did this weird mea culpa thing where she posted on Twitter about how all these weird IDW creepers were messaging her inappropriate shit and harassing her. And she just said, I wonder if I've ever contributed this problem before. And so she she tried to slightly take some responsibility for the garbage pile that she built that the wind blew back at her. But then she went about her regular business after that. So there was no real redemption for Calipers Claire.
Have you ever heard of the leopards eating people's faces party?
Yes. Why would you vote for them?
Yeah.
Essays from those who have been targeted by mobs in academic and artistic communities. Claire is also a regular contributor to The Australian, the most widely read newspaper in Australia. Hello. Good to see you. It's been a long time since we've talked.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks so much for having me. It's good to see you.
So let's start by talking about Quillette. Let's go back to the beginning. You were a graduate student in psychology, if I remember correctly, pursuing a master's degree at that point, and then you took a sideways move. And why?
Well, often people assume that I left university or left academia because for a political reason, but it wasn't the case. The situation was simply that I had a baby at the time and I couldn't juggle my requirement to do hundreds of hours of unpaid clinical work to complete my master's with also having a baby at home. So I just... So you did something easy, like start the most controversial new magazine in the world, perhaps, or in the English-speaking world. Well, it was meant to be a project to keep me occupied in between quitting my master's and finding a professional job. It wasn't ever meant to be my career, but it took off.
I like that she doesn't consider it a professional job.
After I launched the website.
I don't think phrenology is a profession anymore.
Quite an engaged readership. So over time, I naturally started to focus more on Quillette and less on other things. And now it's my full-time job and it's my full-time, occupies my full-time mental capacity. And it's a very rewarding and fulfilling.
If your skull was shaped a little differently, you'd have a little extra mental capacity for some other things.
Occupation, that's for sure.
Well, you picked a great name, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
And you've had great writers. I mean, who have you particularly enjoyed publishing?
Andy No. There was this other guy. I forget his name. She might mention him. There's a couple real ghouls who've been involved with Quillette.
What do you think's been most worthwhile as far as you're concerned?
Well, the best part of the job is finding young writers, and by young, I mean very young, in their early 20s or even late teens in some cases, who are brilliant and who wouldn't be picked up by other publications because
they're racist. They're sexist.
I'm going to guess she's going to say too controversial.
They're incredibly homophobic. Yeah, of course it's going to be, views are too controversial.
They don't know the right people in media. They're too young. They don't have the connections. I think one thing I've been really proud of with Quillette is our promotion of young talent, promotion of talent that, we have writers that come from rural areas who aren't in the big cities. We have a really diverse, we publish older people, younger people. We have a real true diversity
of white people that publish for your fucking the only
like
different
older and younger is not true diversity.
Yeah, the only diversity
spectrum.
The only diversity she could think of was their age. No other kinds of diversity come to mind when you think of the writing staff at your magazine. Oh, she mentioned also people who don't live in a city and people who do.
We even have some left-handers.
And that's not lefties, though.
In our writers. And that's not by design. We're not plucking people out because they fit our diversity metrics. It's just that when you select people on talent and merit, you naturally get a diverse range of voices.
Yeah, there's a truly egalitarian statement, right?
Yeah. But
if you actually believe that merit is distributed throughout all human populations, let's say ethnicities, races, gender, sex, all of that, then why not just choose on merit?
And it's
grinding his teeth.
I think it just looks that way because he's got his camera so high up above him that like he's basically doing this. So it just looks really weird.
Right, but also what we should also focus maybe on what he said was he was like, if you get a bunch of smart people, it'll, obviously be diverse. But then again, the only diversity she mentioned was like their age and like whether or not they lived in a dense place. Like,
yeah, like I agree with that statement, but I don't think her magazine is a particularly good example of it.
What I find is that if you select on merit, you'll find the diamond in the rough. You will find the writers who might not be.
She's like, we had a black guy write once, and that's what I mean by the diamond in the rough.
The best self-promoters, the best at attending the right parties and sucking up to the right editors. But if you assess people's writing purely on the quality and originality of their ideas, you naturally get a broad range of voices, and that's something I'm really proud of. And some of our younger writers include people like Common Hughes, and he's not with us anymore, but we were the first to publish him.
He's probably an anti-vaxxer now.
Rav Avora, Rob Henderson. He's not as young as Coleman, but he's an amazingly original thinker.
What is with this young writer thing?
Has a unique.
I don't know. She's just saying that she's found young talent or whatever. That's like not a bad thing, I guess, right? If you had a publication, if you had quit your job to do a news outlet, wouldn't you be trying to look for writers that nobody else found yet that were good?
I would say you shouldn't focus on only young writers. I guess she did say that they have older writers, but like, I don't know. Isn't experience a good thing?
I don't think that I don't think that that's like really, she's just saying that's what she's proudest of. I don't think there's a problem with her saying that.
Okay.
That's not going to be the beef that I have with Caliber Claire here.
Unique background. Another writer who I'm proud of publishing is an older writer who is Amazon warehouse worker, and he writes from a sort of a blue collar working class perspective. He's very well read and has a very unique but important voice. He can contextualize issues around class from a real lived experience, which is kind of rare in journalism because journalism has become such an elite occupation, particularly in the United States.
What's his name?
Kevin Mims. So that's...
Yeah, well, I've often found that the most interesting people to speak with are very smart people who haven't been educated.
Yeah.
That's what a cult leader would say.
Yeah.
Nobody's taught them what a charlatan looks like yet. That's what I'm looking for.
I feel like I personally prefer to talk to someone who's well educated, or then I'll probably learn something,
or has like interesting life experience, or not some mind that you can just mold by giving them your opinion. That's fucking scary. That's what a kid is. That's why we hope people have good parents and good teachers around them and shit. Otherwise, they fucking end up running into this guy who's like, "Oh, you have a young, uncorrupted mind. Here's a bunch of bullshit. Buy my book."
Haven't pursued a complete course of higher education, and they do the reading on their own, and they think in some ways on their own. And so when you encounter them, they have ideas that you don't hear from anyone else.
And they're not affected by the manners. So much of education is just about internalizing the manners of the upper middle class. And when you have the ideas and the insights, but they're not they don't come with the baggage of all of that upper class etiquette, can be quite interesting, and there can be
often quite humorous often as well.
Yeah, of course.
So do you regard...
Listen to these two people from the fucking rarefied atmosphere of class as far as like like online personas. Oh, it's so interesting to listen to the poors. Shut the fuck up.
Aren't the peasants amusing?
Right? Get the fuck out of here.
Regard Quillette as a conservative or a right-wing publication? And was that your goal to begin with?
No.
She was before Quillette, she was with a far-right news organization. I think it might have been Rebel News. I think she was with, even though she's in Australia, I think she was with Canada's Rebel News beforehand. Like, she's just going to lie.
So
here.
Yes is the answer.
But she's going to lie.
Yeah.
No, we're not conservative and we're not right wing. I'm not particularly, well, I would consider myself a centrist. You
know what centrist means? Here are the things that I believe. I'm going to turn my beliefs into an ivory tower, and I'm going to climb upon it and look down upon everyone else because I am right. That's what it means to be a centrist.
Dave, I think you and I are centrists.
And in the places we disagree, we can have like a bridge between our centrist ivory towers.
Yeah. That's the valley between the two centers that we occupy.
Come on, shut the fuck up. It's always a signal to other people that you're reasonable or that you're like basically smarter than everybody else. When I believe people, when people start talking about this, if they use the word moderate, I'm more likely to believe them, right? Like, oh, I'm a conservative, but I'm fairly moderate. You believe that person because they're telling you that they tend to be conservative, but they're like, I'm not like all the QAnon fucking spirit cooking fucking frazzle drip people. Like, I just wish taxes were a little bit lower, and I don't care that much about social issues.
Yeah, but like a lot of the people who are on the far right would call them lefties.
Right. Because they're moderate. But as soon as somebody calls himself a centrist, I'm just telling you that, HK, we're both centrists. That's just because we're right. They're just telling you that they're right, and they see what's wrong with both sides.
Yeah, we're in the center. We have the reasonable position. Everyone else is crazy and wrong.
I'm telling you, man, the word moderate is so much better. It does not set off alarm bells. If you're out there and you think you're a centrist, think a little bit more about it. Because you're probably more liberal or more conservative, and then you could just tell people that you're a moderate liberal.
Or you can be like us and be like, we are fairly radical lefties.
Yeah, I'm
leftist.
Yeah, I'm a leftist. Or as the chat sometimes says, I'm every communist's favorite shit lib.
We're like approaching radical.
Well, anyway,
I wouldn't consider you or me,
but it
really
does
radical.
That doesn't matter as much as just understanding that when someone tells you that they're a centrist, they're usually just telling you that they've built it themselves an ivory tower, and they're looking down to the left, being like, "How stupid!" Looking down to the right and being like, "Oh, you could actually be my friends." I mean, how stupid. I even switched it so that I was looking stage left and stage right. I'm smart. Hold on, we got to go back to this. I want to hear her talk about her centrist views about measuring skulls and IQ tests.
Conservative on some issues for sure, but I don't come in a conservative package, and I'm quite
what does that mean?
high in openness to experience. So my temperament is quite liberal. And that's
how about conscientiousness?
Could be higher.
Yeah, well, your room is clean, so that's part of that.
Oh my God, Jordan Peterson playing the hits.
Effort to just push things out.
I see.
Yeah.
She's just well aware of what's in the range of the
I'm not
camera.
orderly at all. I'm industrious, but my orderliness is actually quite low. And
you're industrious. Like,
you
don't even own a microphone for interviews.
What is she using? Just her laptop mic?
You can tell, yeah, because I think it might even be on her lap because you see it like bouncing a little bit. And I don't think she's typing. You can see it.
I never considered myself a conservative until I think the left became sort of hijacked by these social justice ideas.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me as well.
Yeah.
No.
Conservative.
Yeah.
Does she mean like
who knows,
back in the
right?
60s?
Yeah. But I do think there are tremendous insights in conservative philosophy, and
which time when the left was hijacked does she mean?
I don't know. I think she just means that she wants to not claim to be a conservative even though she is.
Yeah.
I think it's just a trick.
Like, doesn't the left get hijacked with new ideas every like 20 years?
Sure, it's like the fact, like it's the same thing as the New World Order. There's always a New World Order. Just get ready for it. It's coming, whether you like it or not. The order of the world is going to change. But yeah, times change, and sometimes people who were once on like sort of the left now they're on the right. But I don't think that's her. She's, I think, younger than I am or around my age. I don't think like times have changed that fucking much. I think she's just a conservative, but wants to occupy that sort of why I left the left grift space.
Yeah, the same space that that Dave Rubin claims to be in.
Yeah, that's a grift space, and she has to remain there. She's going to probably claim that her pro-vaccine stance is a liberal position, which is stupid. It's just a vaccine. It actually doesn't have a political party.
Kind of thing. I appreciate the conservative perspective a lot more than I used to when I was younger.
Yeah, well, the conservative emphasis on being very careful of unintended consequences is definitely something that is wise and a necessary counterpart to, well, too much incautious originality, let's say.
Yeah, and I think that the conservatives have it right when it comes to family and relationships. There's...
I think
what the hell does that mean?
That means I don't like gay people and trans people or divorced people or single parents. It's probably, like it's like a dog harmonica.
I think it's mostly I don't like gay people.
Right, but it's a dog harmonica. It has many notes. Probably doesn't like interracial marriage,
Probably, yeah. Aren't they trying to what state was it? There's like some U.S. state where some politician is trying to overturn interracial marriage.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Supposedly he misspoke. That's his excuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm not keeping up on every dumb thing every dumb state is doing in our dumb country.
There's not a whole lot of experimentation that one can do with family structure without it going haywire.
Yeah, well, it's a difficult thing to manage.
So, well, especially if you're you and your daughter's Michaela. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I just can't see how it's possible to operate as a single parent, particularly. It's very, very difficult to do that, to work and to raise children. I mean, I know people do it, and some people do it extremely well, but man, it's quite the damn job to manage it well. And then you don't have someone around constantly to talk to about your kids, which is also a problem. I mean, maybe you have friends, but that's not quite.
But she was dog whistling about gay people, you dumb fuck. You're talking about single mothers. She was dog whistling about gay people. Come on, try to keep up, Jordy Pete. Try to keep up.
Quite the same thing. And so that doesn't necessarily say that the nuclear family is the only option, but we are pretty tightly pair bonded as a species. So
yeah. No, I think
no, we're not.
Hard work.
Yeah, what's the divorce rate? It's like you're more likely to get divorced than not. What the fuck are you talking about?
Like on a species level, we're extremely promiscuous.
Right. We's a bunch of hoes.
Yeah, like humans are not meant to be monogamous. Like,
or if
you're monogamous, that's great. I'm monogamous, but humans aren't meant to be monogamous.
Yeah, this is absurd. That's the dumbest fucking the pair bonding. Like, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no way more people get divorced than stay married. This is just not true. People are like thirsty and needy, but that doesn't mean that our species is pair bonded. That's like codependence, not pair bonding.
Yeah.
But there's a big trade-off, and something our culture is not very good at talking about is the risk to children that is presented by having unrelated adults in their household, which is something I'm very...
Like your friends?
What? Is she talking about adopting kids now?
She might be dog whistling about adoption. I just thought she was telling you not to invite your friends over after you have kids because it's bad for the family unit.
Either she means adopting kids or she means like maybe surrogate motherhood.
Oh, I thought she was just being a killjoy, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Let's see what she has to say here, because there's no way this is true unless she like says psych afterwards, like it was the 80s.
In their household, which is something I'm very aware of being a mother. You can't, when you've got little children running around and they're creating messes and dramas and they're acting up, you kind of need the male in the house to be biologically related to them to protect them from, potential aggravation. It's just, it seems to me a uniquely dangerous thing.
What the fuck is she talking about?
Oh my God. She came.
So she's just against like stepdads.
Or just dad's fucking friend coming over for a beer after work, it sounds like.
I think she's against stepdads. What she said is when the kids are getting rowdy, you need the father to be biologically related. Meaning she's assuming there's a father there. And she's saying if that father is a stepdad, it's bad. That's weird.
Gorka has something about this to say.
It's what psychotics say.
I've never heard anyone being against stepdads or like step parents. Maybe, I don't know. What if it's a stepmom? Is she okay with stepmoms but not stepdads?
She has a kid. I wonder where your man at. I don't know, but it's I would ask her that. I'd be like, are you living that life?
Men who don't.
This is so
have
weird.
The instinct to care for them, but that's a separate issue.
Well, yes and no. I mean, one fact that has been pretty persistent in psychological
men that don't have the instinct to care for them, but like if you're a stepdad, you do have the instinct to care for them. Like if you're just mom's boyfriend, sure, that's one thing. But if you're a stepdad, if you've adopted them.
Or married mom.
Or yeah, if you've married mom, like. Unless there's a very strange family dynamic that I don't know about, which I'm not necessarily saying I'd be against, but that probably means you have that instinct. You care for those kids.
Like, oh God. What if the stepdad is already a parent himself? Does he just have the instinct to protect the one kid that is his fucking sperm ostensibly made? How do we even know if one of these kids isn't the mailman's? There's just a lot of fucking questions that I have here about this.
This is a really, like, I've never heard such a ridiculous take on step parents.
Well, you know what? Jordan Peterson is a world-renowned psychologist, so he's probably going to push back on that nonsense that his guest said, right?
That's a separate issue.
Well, yes and no. I mean, one fact that has been pretty persistent in
Wait, yes and no, or just no and no?
A child is at a much higher risk for physical abuse from a step parent. I think it's, I hate to say this, but I think it's 100-fold. It's something.
Oh, that can't be true.
But that part might be wrong. It's been a while since
I feel like there are other factors at play here, if that is true.
Not wrong. And that is definitely worth thinking about. I mean, children push your buttons. And
that's right.
Yes, and smart, tough children particularly do that. And so, well, there has to be some inhibition of that, and that, well, we don't necessarily.
So what is their solution here if dad dies? Because they're against single parents, and they're against stepdads.
Throw the people in the human soup.
just kill them.
Yeah, just throw them in the soup with the fucking witches and fucking, now it's like trans people, I guess, out there just dumping babies into a giant cauldron, like the satanic panic shit. Just do that to them.
Yeah. If dad dies, the whole family's got to go.
Got to go in the soup, everybody. Sorry.
This is crazy.
Between the love that inhibits that sort of thing and direct genetic relationship, biological relationship. But it's not zero, that's for sure. Yeah, so those people you listed as writers for Quillette, they've gone on to have quite the careers. Rav Avora, Rob Henderson, Coleman Hughes. Yeah, so it's nice to, it's exciting to be able to find young people and to...
Is it Quillette or Killette?
Put them in positions where...
I would rather not get bogged down in that. I say Killette.
Okay.
Killette, because you could say Caliper, Killette, and it sounds good like that. You know, Caliper Claire from Killette. It all works. All right. It's about the delivery, my friend.
I thought it was Killette.
I don't care. Absolutely do not care.
It's where they can succeed or to help them along that path. That's one thing I really liked about being a professor with undergrads and graduate students when that worked.
Yeah, that's definitely the most rewarding aspect of the job, and just giving people a platform, particularly when people are going through a difficult time. You know, we've published lots of articles written by people who have been, for want of a better term, cancelled at their university or their workplace. And
tortured is a better word, really.
Yeah, and we had
fired is a better word.
The similarities between cancel culture and torture a few weeks ago. On
Dave, did I ever tell you about the time?
Whoa, hold on. Listen, I'm not kidding. Check this out.
What word, really?
Yeah, and we had an article about the similarities between cancel culture and torture a few weeks ago on Quillette.
What? The similarities between cancel culture and torture. Hold on. Can I guess the list?
You already did. Very good.
Both are human constructs.
Some people might be mean to you in both circumstances.
Yep, we got two.
They put like things under your fingernails. Oh, nope. That's just torture. They use water in a washcloth.
They simulate drowning.
Yeah, nope.
That's also just torture.
They're mean to you on Twitter. Oh wait, no, that's cancel culture. Just cancel.
That's just cancel culture.
In fact, that's not even cancel culture. That's just Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just like I had a dumb take on Twitter and I got ratioed.
I don't know. I'd say there's zero similarity between them. I guess both make you feel really insanely bad if you're super sensitive and have never been tortured before.
Oh my God. This is fucking crazy. I didn't think this is going to be that good, but this is like got to be top 10 craziest things we've watched on this show.
Do you remember when what's his name? Christopher Hitchens was like, waterboarding, that's not torture. And then he did it and he was like, Jesus fucking Christ, that was torture.
Yeah, don't do that.
That was absolutely torture.
And then he dunked on Hannity
like
because
these people have no fucking idea what torture is.
Then he dunked on Hannity because Hannity said he would do it and then didn't do it. I remember that whole thing. Yeah. Hold on.
So that's also been very rewarding, just being able to provide a bit of cover for people and a bit of moral support and giving people a voice potentially when they're going through a rough time in their lives.
Like torture?
That comment you made about the most rewarding part of it being the ability to find promising young people and to open doors for them. That's really worth thinking about too, because it's easy for people to have a stereotypical view of, let's say, the boss in an organization.
Could you imagine describing torture as a rough time in your life?
She was describing cancel culture as the rough time. There's a lot of
but she was comparing the two.
Right. No, there's a lot of sleight of hand going on. I will call it prestidigitation, like a magic trick, right? There's a lot of it's like a lot of like verbal sleight of hand or whatever going on here.
Bosses,
this is fucking crazy.
Stupid ones, obviously, because for obvious reasons. But I think that benevolent element is extremely overlooked.
Yeah.
When people are thinking about how organizations are structured, because the good people I know in organizations think the way you do about what they're doing, that there's almost nothing more fun than finding some young person who's promising and helping them succeed in a variety of ways as people and as there's a new sitcom.
Oh, I thought he was going to say helping them destroy their future by publishing something racist.
It's about an American football coach who goes to the UK to coach a soccer team. And it's a very, very positive sitcom and has very positive male and female characters, which is quite rare. But it focuses on that to a tremendous degree and very effectively, I think, that it's sort of in loco parentis. And it makes sense that that would be a motivation because, of course, we love our children and most of the time, and we would like to facilitate their development. And so why wouldn't that be a natural source of reward?
Wait, when he said we love our children most of the time, was he talking about, most people love their children, or did he mean he loves his child most of the time?
If your daughter sent you off to a weird unlicensed rehab facility in Russia to be put in a coma because you would fucking eat too much beef and take too much benzos, you'd love your children just some of the time too, HK.
Yeah, you're right.
Yikes.
That when you're running an organization.
Oh, definitely. And, you would know this as a clinical psychologist that we often feel anxious and depressed when we're focusing on ourselves too much and we're ruminating and we're thinking about, when we get trapped in our own mind, in our own world. And so focusing on what we can do for others is a really easy way to get out of that trap.
Yeah, well, depressed people use I a lot.
Yeah.
It's pronoun use. You know how important that is. So,
oh, come on, dude. Now we can't. Now we don't. Now we're gonna throw I under the bus. My pronoun is I. Like I thought. Of course that's my pronoun. Nobody. No.
There are some people who talk in third person.
Yeah, those people like Jordan Peterson. Bet a lot of Jordan Peterson fans talk about themselves in the third person.
Probably.
This is peak intellectual Dollar Tree. I'm glad I almost didn't do this. I was like, this is going to be such shit. I almost didn't do this.
But yes,
no, this was perfect.
Constant use of self-referential pronouns is
this is a perfect amount of crazy.
That's an interesting observation.
The constant use of self-referential pronouns is how you explain to somebody when something happened to you. Or when you were the thing, you're like, hey man, I did this thing, and then you tell, and your friend's like, oh, that's weird. Why'd you do that? And then you, I did it because of this, and then they're like, oh, that's actually really funny. Like that's how you fucking interact with people. Yes, you use I all the time.
Usually, if you're telling a story about yourself, you wouldn't use you.
Oh God.
We really don't know how much you have to concentrate on other people to be optimally situated in terms of your emotional regulation. But too much self-focus, that is clearly associated with depression. The causal connection is hard to exactly establish, but certainly people who get depressed do tend to sever or lose a lot of their social connections, and that tends to make their depression spiral. So
yes. Yeah.
I also, when I was treating people with...
He's using the word I an awful lot.
Severing your social what did he say?
It's like when you're depressed, you end up
social connections.
Yeah, you end up severing your social connections.
Yeah. That's also what a lot of people who are being radicalized do. Like QAnon followers.
And Scientology basically demands it of anybody if the people that are your loved ones and friends aren't pro Scientology. And Jordan Peterson fans probably do some version of it too, right?
Probably. It's probably one of his rules for life.
Right. I'm here to tell you, by the way, as a listener of the Intellectual Dollar Tree, even if your friends and family like these jokers, they're still your friends and your family, and you should try to remain their friends, friends and family with them, unless the relationship is toxic enough that what I'm saying here is fucking bullshit and you got to get away from them.
Yeah, like if it's not possible to be around them without them bringing up this kind of stuff, then that's when you should cut the tie.
Right, but you should strive to not have that be the case and do your best to change the subject and do your best to explain to them that you don't want to talk about this stuff and that you have other things in common. That's why you know each other. Anyway.
Social anxiety. We know one of the things that I had them practice doing was paying more attention to other people. And I meant that like physically and psychologically. It's like if you start getting anxious, instead of avoiding and falling into your self-devouring thoughts, pay attention to the faces in particular of the people you're interacting with, because you'll see with depressed and anxious people, they'll often avoid eye contact. They're trying to shield themselves from what they see as excessive evaluation, right? And they think that evaluation is going to be critical. But if they would just look, then that's generally not true. And depressed and anxious people radically overestimate the degree to which that's true. And then the other thing that happens is that, like, if I'm not looking at you, then I'm going to be awkward in my conversation with you. And that's going to make me anxious. But if I look at your face, well, then I can see what you're doing and how you're operating. And then all the automatic mechanisms I have that if I'm reasonably socially skilled, they just kick in. Some people lack that, but most people don't. And so as long as they initiate it through attention, then away they go.
The word often there is pulling a lot of weight. Because there are a ton of depressed people who are like super outgoing and friendly when they're in public settings.
Right, because they've learned to do that.
Yeah.
You can teach yourself that stuff.
And I feel like he should know that.
The other thing is he just spent a lot of time saying that it's probably a good idea to make some eye contact when you're talking to people. Right?
I can't. It's hard for me to do that over this because if I look at you, I look down here. But if I look at the camera, I feel weird.
Yeah, I
even
don't put
googly eyes on my camera, and I still don't look at it.
You probably look at them less. But in like but if you're with someone, making eye contact with them once in a while you talk to them is a good thing.
Yeah,
and he spent a very long time trying to explain.
But not constant eye contact.
He spent too long trying to explain that. Also, like the thing he was saying, you could, like he said, observe everyone around you. But what if your eyes are like all darting around at everybody all the time and you just look shifty? Like these things are more complicated. There's like social cues, physical cues.
But yeah, I want to stress that there are a lot of depressed people that don't fit that stereotype.
Through attention, then away they go.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it reminds me of the experience I had growing up. So I worked before I was doing a psychology master's, and before I'd been doing.
Where'd you work?
I worked for 10 years, from the age of 15 to 25, as a waitress.
Oh,
and I think that was actually probably one of the best things that I've done in my life because, I mean, for a range of reasons, but I remember being in my late teens.
I thought people on the right hated waitresses.
All of these interactions with people every night. Well, I wouldn't work.
Or is that just when the waitress is
having hundreds
on
of
the left?
interactions, small interactions where you have to greet people, seat them, take their order, attend to them during their dinner, that kind of thing, and make sure everything's okay. I mean, they're just tiny, small interactions, but any social anxiety is immediately becomes extinct. And you learn confidence in just talking to people, and any kind of fear that you might have as a young person who sort of, doesn't have high status or hasn't had much experience in the world, that all melts away just from having a service job. And I think that having a service job is one of the best things a young person can do, particularly if they suffer.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah. I loved it.
Yeah. I worked in restaurants for years. I started when I was 14. I worked in restaurants on and off until
God, imagine if he was the bartender somewhere. Oh, God.
He probably makes a pretty good cocktail.
You better fucking... You better be ready for whatever's coming, though.
I was probably 19 or so for about 5 years. That was mostly as a short order cook. And
by the way, to be fair to them, I don't think either of them ever made fun of AOC for being a waitress.
Occupation.
Yeah, I loved it. And in one restaurant in particular, I worked there with friends. And it was a rude shock to me to graduate university and then get an office job after working in a restaurant, because it was so boring by comparison. And so to me, it just seemed like it wasn't real work, working in an office.
I worked with this guy named Scotty Kyle, and he was about 34 years old, and he had been an alcoholic, and he had most of his teeth punched out in fights. He was a rough guy, but he'd stopped drinking by the time I was working with him, and he was a great practical joker. And so and he was always playing jokes on the waitresses, and they liked him. He wasn't mean. He was very, very funny, and so they got along with him really well. And the best joke he ever pulled, I thought, was we had a cooler that you could walk into, and in the cooler there was a white bucket.
I don't like where this is going.
Salad in ice water so that we could just scoop it out and serve a fresh salad pretty straightforwardly. The waitresses would go back and do that. It was their job to serve the salads and to get them out of the cooler. So Scotty stuffed himself into the cooler, which was only about this wide, and he put his hands in the ice water, and then the lights were off back there too. And so when the waitress came back into the room where the cooler wasn't open, she put the scoop in to get the salad, and he grabbed her hands with both his hands, which were ice cold. Well,
oh dear.
I was about 3 rooms away, but you could definitely hear her scream, and I think you could hear it through the whole restaurant. It was extraordinarily funny. And
is this guy okay?
That seems not cool.
He's not like, he's not really going in the direction of a conversation in any sort of meaningful way.
My question is, the guy who was in the cooler, how did he know how long he would be in the cooler? How long was he in the cooler? Was he waiting like an hour in there?
Probably bad for his hands if they were in fucking ice water the whole time.
Yeah, did he lose his hands?
I don't know. I just fucking whatever. Let's just say that this happened and it was weird, instead of Jordan Peterson made up a very oddly specific story.
I believe in that it happened. It sounds like a true story.
He may have gotten some of the details wrong.
Yeah. I doubt he went in there with his hands in the water for very long.
Sounds painful. Anyway, let's see what's Claire going to say about that.
So that's one of the things I really liked about working class jobs, actually, is that they had a constant humor that was happening.
Yeah.
That was
absolutely, yeah.
So back to Quillette.
Yes.
So, like, she was like, I'm not touching that weird story with a 10-foot pole.
Office jobs have humor too, though. Like, people like humor.
Right. Like, you can't have a place with a printer and not have jokes. It's just impossible. Right? Like, printers are bad.
The first thing I ever printed on my printer was a joke.
Why did Quillette succeed so well, do you think? What did you do right? And I mean, timing is something, right? But still, you have to be in the right place. You were in the right place at the right time. And so what happened, do you think?
Peter Thiel money.
Well, I'm pretty good at spotting talent. And so I spotted a couple of writers. I was on Twitter and I saw people writing for their own blogs. One of them was Jamie Palmer, who's now sort of second in charge. He's senior editor in London. He was writing for his own blog, and I remember reading his prose and just thinking, why isn't this guy working for the Sunday Times? Like, his prose was so beautiful, and
because his prose was about IQ.
Had such a complexity that was so interesting. So I could see unexploited talent. And I mean, when I created Quillette, it was in late 2015. It was just before, or happened simultaneously with the creation of the Heterodox Academy. And I was actually, I was a huge fan of Jonathan Haidt prior to beginning Quillette, and I had met a psychologist called Lee Jussum, who had come out to Australia to give a talk at a psychology symposium. And I went to meet him and talk to him. And we talked a lot about the left-wing bias in psychology, in particular social psychology. And that was
we should talk more about that.
Yeah, so that was fascinating to me because, I'd been studying psychology for a long time. I loved psychology. My favorite aspects of psychology are the sort of things that you look at, such as personality and individual differences. But it was really amazing to me to discover that social psychology might have a huge replication problem because they had this political bias sort of baked into their studies. And so I went to talk to Lee Jussum about this. And this was 6 years ago, but it was before the problems in academia had become very widely known and talked about. And so I was fascinated by this idea that a particular area of science could be corrupted by political bias. And then I wanted to write an article about this particular topic. And I thought, there's no publication that will have me, because the publications that focus on science, such as Scientific American or even The Guardian, they publish on scientific topics. They lean, and then publications that might be interested in publishing articles
Did she say they lean to the left?
Yeah.
Okay. It broke up. I don't know if that was in the video or if it was
just
for me.
It did break up, but that's what she said, yeah.
I wonder why people who publish science generally lean left.
That's like I don't think that it's even like that. I think that like a good journal will try to be unbiased and just publish the facts. And if the facts support one political position or the other, them's just the fucking breaks. I don't think that.
Yeah, the facts lean left. So
sure, I won't talk about it like that. I just say if the fucking facts say what they say and they don't line up with what you believe, them's the breaks. I don't like that trope, actually, that the science is a liberal whatever. I don't like that trope. I think it's like lazy, and it like it leans leans into the criticism that we get. Like it like gives the people that are it like leans into the criticism that we get. It is like what people will say. It's like, no, it's just what people will like say as a caricature of like the things that we believe. So I just don't.
Science leans towards the facts, and the left generally leans towards science.
Sure. If you want to say that, that's fine. But I just don't. I don't talk about it that way. for a very good reason.
Okay.
Contest some left-wing narratives, they're not going to be particularly interested in science. So I needed a publication that was interested in analysis and scientific rigor, but was also going to challenge left-wing narratives. And I thought that such a publication didn't actually exist, so I had to create my own. And some of the first articles that I published were by academics who
like to measure skulls.
Either in their research or in their career, come up against left-wing ideology in academia or either in their... So I had a particular interest in sex differences. So sex differences in psychology. You know, there's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of empirical evidence that men and women aren't the same psychologically. We have different career preferences. We have different sexual psychology.
Here we go.
But it's difficult to talk about these issues in mainstream journalism.
I've noticed.
Yeah, of course. And so I wanted a publication that would explore these issues, and I invited academics who I knew who had interests in either evolutionary psychology or behavioral genetics to come and write for me. And a couple of the early essays that I published were just very good, and they kind of went viral, as much as, you know, viral for a high intellectual publication, and it just took off from there.
It's interesting, and chat just said it too. She's not saying what those differences are in this interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why those differences might exist or whatever. She's just saying that those differences exist and that nobody wants to talk about it. But that's not true. There's social science that talks a lot about, I mean, they just come to the conclusion she doesn't like, basically. Like the rest of the social sciences have come to a conclusion that isn't her conclusion, it seems like. And that's the problem I think she has here versus nobody wants to talk about this thing.
Basically, the conclusion is that those differences exist because of societal pressure.
Right, or in large part.
If you remove societal pressure, those differences tend to fade away.
Right, they're in large part, like to the extent, they're a very large part due to societal pressure and, in this particular case, the patriarchy. And it harms men, it harms women, it harms it harms trans people, non-binary people, it harms everyone. And that's the fucking thing that, that's the conclusion I think that she doesn't like, right? Is that this patriarchy harms everyone. So she wants to go somewhere else and be like, well, these differences are actually all biological. And so we don't have to, if you start saying these things are biological, then the next step after that is that we should no longer waste our time trying to achieve a more equitable society. It's the same argument Charles Murray makes in The Bell Curve.
Yep.
Like the same argument.
And it's a bullshit argument.
Because even people who don't think it's don't think that, it's all society or whatever, they're just going to tell you that they're not sure and that they leave open the possibility that it's something else. But the people who want it to be biological are almost not, they're never telling you that they're not sure. And so I don't trust them. Because this is there's so many moving parts going on here. Anybody who's sure is full of themselves. It's just so much shit going on here. But yeah, in the end, in this one, she just doesn't want to acknowledge the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Or to the extent maybe that she does want to acknowledge it, she wants to say that it's the natural order of things.
Yeah. She's implying that those differences are genetic, I guess, or inherent, and they're not learned differences.
We just built up a social media following.
Okay, so you point to two factors, eh? So one is that you like to spot talent and you actually could do it. And you also believe that talent exists. So that's kind of helpful for that, if it does happen to be the case that talent does exist. And then when talented people are having difficulty, let's say, being published somewhere because of their the tenor of their viewpoint, whatever that happens to be.
No, it's not the tenor of their viewpoint. It's the viewpoint. It's not that the viewpoint is being expressed in a overly flowery way. It's the viewpoint. Nobody's like, people's like, but that's not only untrue, that's racist. So I'd rather not publish that. Get out of here. The tenor of the viewpoint, trying to like obfuscate what the fucking like why some of these people aren't able to get published anywhere but Skull Measuring Quarterly. Like,
exactly the kind of opportunity that you just described, right? Because then you have this pool of talent that isn't being utilized that you can capitalize on, so to speak, while also aiding in the development of those people. Then that issue that you brought up there, that's part of your ability to spot what's not right. You know, the fact that you cottoned on to that bias in psychology so early in your psychological progression. I mean, you happen to talk to people who knew this, but still, that's quite the realization. You know, I really didn't understand that until I had been a psychologist probably for at least 15 years, a professor. Now, I did my PhD in a more biological area, and then I was a personality psychologist, and it doesn't have the same kind of bias. But then I started looking into the literature on authoritarian personality and authoritarianism, and all I found was this insistence that there was no such thing as left-wing authoritarianism. And I thought, what the hell is this? How can we possibly...
But that's political science. That's not fucking psychology. You done jumped in the other pool without fucking... You probably went and peed in their fucking pool too, asshole.
Assume as a science, social psychology, which is not much of a science as far as I'm concerned, by the way. But how can we state so bluntly that there's no such thing as left-wing authoritarianism? And the authoritarian scale that had been used by social psychologists was only right-wing authoritarianism. And I thought, well, what about the communists? I mean, did nobody notice in social psychology that there were communist dictators? What were those people? Well, and then it's worse than that. That's bad enough. Now, I had a great...
But as a fellow psychologist, if he saw something like that, right, and he thought that's what the psychological material was saying, he could like get on the horn probably and get that person on the phone and be like, hey, I think that's what this is saying. And then the person should say, well, you should read the rest of my study. You're not reading my study. What are you talking about? Have you seen page 7? Like, before he became this kind of toxic manosphere cult leader, he was an academic with like some published papers at a fucking regular university. He could just get on the horn and people be happy to talk to him, I'm sure, right?
Probably, yeah.
Why wouldn't they? Oh, it's a psychologist out of a Canadian university that doesn't quite get what's going on with my paper. Yeah, I'm gonna give them a call back. Actually, be an interesting conversation. See if they want to, contribute to peer review of my thing. And then they talk to him. They're like, "Oh, he cray." The technical term for this is cray.
Student who we started to do research on left-wing authoritarianism, but that by the time that got off the ground, fundamentally, things exploded around me and I stopped working as a professor. I couldn't do that anymore.
No, because why would you do work as a professor when you were making $80 a month on fucking Patreon? Why the fuck would you go to your little professor job when you could just lie to people for $80,000 a month? That's a lot of fucking money.
That is a lot of money, but you got to sell your soul to do it.
But the other thing that's really horrible is the implicit association test.
Oh yeah.
Now, and that left-wing issue is dead relevant here. So, I'll tell you a story. This is a good story, I think.
Oh, is it as good as your last story about the fucking hands in the ice? He's like, Nan and Jan ran.
Ice Hands McGee is what we can call him.
So Mazarin Banaji, who is one of the inventors of the IAT, and who hasn't protested against its misuse to the degree that the other creators of the IAT have, and also nowhere nearly as much, is quite left in her viewpoint. So that's point number one. Point number two, I saw her when I was at Harvard. She came to deliver a talk. She's there now, but she wasn't when I was there. She came to deliver a talk about the IAT. She talked about bias, implicit bias. And so I think I asked her this question. She was delivering a talk to the
He didn't ask her this question.
faculty and the graduate students. I said, what's the difference between implicit bias and categorization? And she didn't really have an answer to that.
Because it's kind of the same thing. If you have an implicit bias, you're going to make categories for people. Come on, dude. That's a dumb question. That's why. To have like implicit biased against groups or whatever, don't you have to categorize them first?
Yeah, when he says she didn't have an answer, does he mean that she didn't have an answer that he liked?
Or if she just, if her answer was really mundane, kind of like, oh, well, we all categorize people all the time. No, these aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
That. And I thought, wait a second. This is an important issue. You're equating categorization with implicit bias.
Yeah.
Well, let's call that a pronounced sin on the left. And here's the fundamental idea, as far as I can tell, is that, well, it isn't obvious how we categorize. That's partly Foucault's criticism of category structures, and there's something to that, because categorization is extremely difficult.
Unless we're trying to figure out everybody's IQ by their race, then we can categorize those black people. Categorize them hella quick. I'll do it right now.
Bias is it's insane. It's so it's so shallow and so wrong and so dangerously wrong. Well, it's not surprising that the IAT has gone out into the world from social psychology and just wreaked devastating havoc. And I should also say, as a research and clinical psychologist, that if a clinical psychologist used that test in a clinical setting, they would be in deep trouble, because it's nowhere near valid enough or reliable enough to be used for diagnostic purposes. Period. The end.
Well, all
right, this is a good place to stop this as any. We're a little over an hour. Like, if it's not being used in a clinical setting and it's just out there in like the social psychology, like the kind of academia setting, then okay. Then what are they using it on? They're just printing it somewhere and like leaving it for people to fill out and fucking mail back. Like, what are they doing? Putting it in the back of a magazine? Putting it on a bubblegum wrapper? Like, where's this test going? And why is there a problem with it if it's not being used in a clinical setting?
Devastating havoc,
right,
Dave.
It's not even being used in a clinical setting, but it's like, who's it wreaking havoc on? What, are they using it in Scientology?
You mean havoc?
Havoc. They must be using it in Scientology. That must be what he's talking about. Like, I don't know what he meant at the end there. I mean, I
don't either.
I mean, I have no idea what he was talking about. I like in chat after he told his little story, somebody in chat was like, and everyone clapped, like, like, I liked the fucking first story about the restaurant better, honestly. It made more sense.
Everyone clapped after that too.
Yeah. The guy was a prankster. Used to be an alcoholic. All his teeth got busted out for bar fights. What a weird way to tell a story. I'm like of two minds on the post game here. I have something funny as fuck to show you before we, like at the beginning of the post game. Something that me and the media wench made today when she stopped by after work. But we'll have to decide maybe during the break here if we're going to keep going on this bullshit during the post game, because I feel like we should, but I feel like I don't want to, and it's just one of those things where I think we should keep going because it's absolutely fucking crazy. But I don't want to keep going because it's going to be one of those nights where I go to bed where my brain is exhausted.
I'm cool keeping it a bit short. Did you want to do that?
No, we're going to go to the other side. I just don't know if on the other side we're going to keep watching this fucking video.
No, that's what I mean. It's like only keep watching the video, but not till the end.
Okay, yeah.
Just a bit of it.
Just a bit more. So when we come back, I have something really funny that we made today and a bit more. If you're listening on the podcast, the funny thing I made, I'll try to remember to link it in the show notes because it's on Twitter. It's quite good, quite funny, and it I've just been dragging the fuck out of David Fuller for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's getting to about
he's an easy target.
It's getting to a boiling point. Before we go, I said something about somebody posted something about like somebody that David Fuller had interviewed, and I said what you need to do is like hyperventilate so much that you smack your head on your own desk and then watch that clip again. Maybe it'll make sense. And give David Fuller $500. And the fucking thread started going.
Breathing techniques.
People thought that was funny. And so some people were like making jokes and other people were making jokes. And I said something, and then David Fuller unblocked me, made a comment on what I said, and then reblocked me so that like other people, so basically said other people can go in there and think maybe he hadn't blocked me, I think. I didn't read what he said because I don't.
That means he knows what you're saying, so he blocked you, and he looks at what you're saying.
No,
he just doesn't want you responding to him.
He had blocked me about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. It was right around the time that the last magazine article came out, because it was about him and his weird fucking Zoom call scam. And
but when you block someone, Twitter hides their tweets,
right?
And you have to say like, "Show me the blocked tweet." So he's clicking on that,
right? Yeah,
and reading your blocked tweets
because he knows from the context of whatever's going on that old gay Dave has jumped in there and has been talking about the breath work and the fucking and the fucking sense making classes and shit. David Fuller is a fucking straight up con artist, and like. Other lefty streamers would be like, "Oh, he's a bad faith actor." I don't even know what the fuck, what kind of, I just know that he's like one of the biggest pieces of shit, and he's a big hanger on of the Weinsteins, and he just is British and calls his things films, and everybody assumes he's fucking smart, and he's not. He's a fucking idiot.
He's like a fucking terrible interviewer. Like every interview I've ever seen of him or that he does, he's really bad at it. Yeah, right. Exactly.
There's mirroring your guest go, so what you're saying is this, but then after that you're supposed to ask the follow-up question, maybe even a difficult one, right?
Yeah.
You don't just say, "Oh, you're saying this" to Eric Weinstein, and then Eric Weinstein just goes off to fucking Jupiter with the next thing he's telling you about. You know, it's like,
And then he does videos that, well, to be fair, we've only seen one, but it's like really obvious that it's an ad. And he doesn't disclose that it's an ad.
It's an ad for himself, though. Anyway, we get back,
he did an ad for that lady's breathing technique seminar.
It was his seminar. It was done through his like platform.
Oh, okay.
She was leading it. But anyway, we gotta like play boomers and shit. HK, read the show out.
I'm terrible about
that's why you're doing it.
Making me do it. Thank you for joining, everyone. We're here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we're cutting off the show for the podcast listeners, but if you join us live on Twitch, you can see as we move into red light. So we'll see all of the live audience on the other side for red light. Oh, this is Boomers by Periscope.